Everyone's right there, yeah? Fiscal.
Yeah.
It's now time to focus on fiscal. I know this show generally, there's been that gospel of, we're focusing too much on monetary policy as a country. What is happening with our fiscals? There's no much communication around that. But just looking at the points raised there, first of all, the cost of debt, especially for smaller countries, from a global perspective, we're really suffering. It's quite of concern. I mean, looking at our fiscal and our treasury, the way it's been handling and communicating matters fiscal in this country, do you think we are doing enough? Should we do better, Dr.?
We need to do better. As you hear that the Christina saying there, fiscal consolidation must start now. That actually means that we need to look at how we are spending the money that we get. So our revenue versus the spending, so that we don't actually collect the revenue, but we spend more. Because when you spend more and when you collect and then spend more, then you are not having fiscal discipline, you are not practicing fiscal consolidation. We must mop out areas where we are wasting money, where we are spending unnecessarily. You know, I know in the newspapers and other areas, we have always seen some of these things where sometimes money is misused. That must stop and must stop as immediate.
Yes.
Then now you look at the question of servicing debts. In the developing countries, the cost is increasing. And of course, as the economy continues to be tougher and tougher, the cost of servicing debts will go higher and higher.
Okay.
So the only way that we must always come out of this is to discipline ourselves fiscally. Let us also look at when we get the debt, are we getting it at the right cost, and are we using it for the right purpose?
Yes.
Because sometimes you get the debt and then you use it for other purposes that are not actually giving you the return. Ordinarily, no. If you look for money today, even if you look for 100,000 loan or 500,000 loan or $1 million loan, and then you decide to be traveling around the world with it, honestly, you will actually not be able to. So it means that when we get the money, we need to use it for the right purpose.
Okay.
For everything that we do, it gives us back the money.
Okay.
So even if we go somewhere, we look at some fund, we actually ensure that it gives us back the return.
Definitely.
So for every cent spent, we are looking at what are we gaining from it.
Okay.
Yes.
That's fiscal discipline. Ken, your gospel continues, and it's been actually confirmed by the IMF. It's high time that we take fiscal matters by the horn. So far, what are the low-lying fruits as we close up that we can quickly implement as a country to make sure at least we are returning to fiscal discipline?
I think one of the low-hanging fruits is in the metrics. How do we measure these things so that we're having the right conversations? Far too often here in Kenya, we talk about 70% of our revenue is going to service debt, 80%. And that's the conversation around. But that number is looking at principal and interest.
Yes.
And it really doesn't drive the right behavior. What the IMF is reporting here is you need to look at the cost of interest as a percentage of revenue. And that's the direction we need to move to. And they're talking of 5% for advanced economies and 14%. We are not yet having that in Kenya. We still lump the principal and interest, and it doesn't give you the best conversation. So I think it's first of all having the right metrics and asking how much of our interest payments as a percentage of revenue, and now start having metrics the way the CBK has targets on inflation. The fiscal policy should say this ratio should never go above 10%, for example. I think you start having there's more purity in those conversations when you have the right metrics, really looking at it, because really at the end of the day, it's the interest that is really eating into our planning, particularly now with interest rates going up. So I think it's getting the metrics right, starting to report the right metrics. And even, Parliament came up with recommendations on the debt ceiling.
Okay.
And they said it should not be 55% debt to GDP. Even that is a very amorphous ratio. They should have said anytime interest rates, percentage of interest rates to interest payments to government revenue gets to 10%, that's a crisis and we should not go beyond that. So I think metrics in of itself, if you get the right metrics, we start having the same goal objectives and we start getting closer to the solution.
Yeah. Gentlemen, today's show has been quite heavy, man. Yeah? Quite heavy. If I had the powers, I would have ordered, drinks. That is juice for the two of you, Very, very important. But that's where we put a full stop to today's show. Dr. Harry, you're in academia, so you must have quotes. One of the quotes that impacts your life, like this is one of the quotes, if somebody comes and say, give me an immediate quote, this is top of mind. What is that quote that really touches you?
Mine or another quote from elsewhere?
Do you have yours?
Always do the best when you have the opportunity. Yes, because there is a time that you will not have that opportunity.
Okay.
So my quote, that is mine, is that always do the best when you have the opportunity. When an opportunity presents itself to you, do your best with it.
Okay.
Because you might not get it another time.
All right.
Yes.
Hey, Dr. your quote. You're saying my quote. Okay. Ken, quote that has really impacted your life that you can share with us briefly.
I think I'd reflect on JFK, the American president, who wrote the book Profiles in Courage. And in one speech, gave that famous speech saying, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Okay. So I think it introduces the idea of service.
Okay.
I think sometimes we have this Serikali's idea, but what he's trying to tell us is there's a lot we can do for our country too.
All right, definitely. I hope in the spirit of doing for your country, you've onboarded on E-Teams. Well, thank you very much. Ken Gishinga from Economics and Dr. Tobias Adwenyi from JQuat. And they've been our guests today on BizChat. That's where we close business today, this week. Thank you very much. You are a special person for joining with us throughout the week on Business Today between 3 and 4. I really appreciate you. If I had the powers, unge order some juice on my bill. But since we can't do that, enjoy your weekend. My name is Noki Kimboy. We are out. Peace. Up next is Bill, your KTN. Stay tuned on KTN News. Gentlemen,